Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Forecheck, brought to you by the Ram 1500 Sport. Andy McNamara alongside Rob Wong, filling in for the vacationing Nick Alberga.
Enjoying all the sunshine. It's not that bad here in Toronto, though. It's just a little bit of snow, a little bit of cold, but Nick's definitely got it good.
Nick's got it good. He's sharing too many topless photos on social media. Whatever. Rob and I will have you covered today. We're going to take you through rest of the season sleeper picks coming out of the All-Star break, and of course, how to win some cash in the Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. That'll come a little bit later on. But Rob, what we got to look at here, it's a little tricky when it comes to the fantasy hockey, because you have the All-Star break, you have the bye weeks, and so the schedule manipulation is key. So let's take a look at those games this week. So 4-game teams, you have 8 of them. You see them on the screen. 2-game teams, 9, 1-game teams, 5. So this is really where you want to be looking at for DFS, for the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool, and for your regular leagues. You got to really track who's actually playing multiple games.
Yeah, you definitely do. It's a weird part of the season where, guys are going to be playing different games throughout the week, and matchups are going to be obviously a big part of it as well. But I think when you look at the schedule this week specifically, you don't want to take anybody that's only playing 1 game this week if you can help it. Right. You want to be looking more towards the 2-game teams at the very minimum, but especially the 4-game teams.
Exactly, and it gets a little tricky in the sense too that, like, let's say for Boston, you have Marchand, Pastrnak, where you want to play them, but you have to balance that with, okay, they're playing twice, and I'm looking at the 4-game ones. Am I looking to play more of Vancouver or Washington? So it's all about that balance, especially for DFS and the Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool.
Yeah, even like a team like Ottawa, you don't love playing any of those guys for the most part, but because they have 4 games this week, they're definitely someone you want to look at.
Right. And so let's move on to our rest of the season sleeper picks. This is where you're going to be coming up to your trade deadlines, your fantasy hockey playoffs, and all that. So we're looking at value, players who are available, and even more popular owned players who maybe hit a bit of a slump, let's say. But for me, I'm going forward. Oliver Bjork Strand of the Blue Jackets. I'm loving him as a terrific buy low candidate because people forgot about him. Out with a month with a rib injury. He's come back, returned for 2 games before the All-Star break. In those 2 games, scored a pair of goals, combined 9 shots, averaged 20 fantasy points, and he's only owned in 32% of Yahoo leagues and was lighting it up before he got injured.
Yeah, he's one of the best players in the league from a fantasy perspective, guy that shoots an absolute ton, plays on a Columbus team they don't really think of as like an offensive juggernaut, but the chances and opportunity that he's getting there just works out so perfectly, and he's really an under-the-radar guy. Like you said, only 32% of leagues. Nobody really ever thinks of him, but he's a guy that has a lot of offensive capabilities and is a great, I think, under-the-radar sleeper for the rest of the year.
So you can go grab him off of your waiver wire. Rob, who do you got as your forward?
I'll take somebody that's even more under the radar. Connor Garland of the Arizona Coyotes, just 12% owned in leagues right now, plays on that top line in Arizona with Taylor Hall, Christian Dvorak. That line, I mean, those 3 guys, ever since they've been put together, just have been absolute juggernauts. They generate so many chances on a game-to-game basis. He's got 11 points last 12 games. Got some nice matchups coming out of the All-Star break as well against Anaheim, LA, Chicago, and Edmonton. Left wing and right wing eligibility. So just 12%. I mean, he should not be anywhere close to that, considering the role and opportunity that he's getting with the Coyotes right now.
And I'm with you with the dual position eligibility is key. Bjork Strand, the same left and right wing eligibility. So if you can mix and match that in, that's always helpful. On the defensive side, might be scared, but I'm going with Berry, baby. Tyson Berry of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We knew the hype coming in. We know his upside. It just has not really worked out. But Rob, what we have to think of, okay, contract years, typically players play up. Yeah. And it's been a bit of a nightmare with Babcock. He's been better under Sheldon Keefe. There's still time for him to make the big money. And since December 27th, he has only been held pointless 3 times. So it's trending, but he's got to start showing up and showing out. The potential is there, the skill is there, the means is there. Tyson Berry is a buy low and sleeper pick the rest of the year. At least, he could show up. It's depending if he actually does.
Yeah, I think it's perfect that he's playing on that first power play unit. That's where a lot of his value comes from. Getting an opportunity to play with Austin Matthews, John Tavares, those guys. Even at even strength, he's going to get his plus minus up a little bit as well. We know he's better than this. This is not the Tyson Berry that we're used to seeing. This team is just too good offensively for him to not put up numbers. And I think since Sheldon Keefe took over, those numbers have gone up a little bit more than where we've expected them to, but still not at that level that we've seen Tyson Berry when he was in Colorado.
Right. See if he can take take advantage of Morgan Rielly's absence as well. Who's your defender sleeper?
Well, speaking of Colorado, I'm looking at Ryan Graves of the Avalanche, sort of an under-the-radar guy in the sense that he's more of a niche category guy because he's not putting up a ton of points, but he's going to get you block shots. His plus-minus, he's actually the league leader in the NHL this year at plus 34, so nobody would ever associate that with him, but he plays on a good team, of course, with a lot of offense in Nathan MacKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, the list goes on and on and on. Skating alongside Cale Makar too, so that's a big boost for him. Plus minus, as we know, it's a tough stat to predict moving forward the rest of the year.
Sure.
But just the situation that he's in, that's going to be big. And like I mentioned, the block shots, he's top 20 in block shots per 60 this year. So he's a guy that can give you those niche stats, whether it's plus minus if you're in a league that's from 1985 and antiquated. But still, most leagues still have that stat. So I think he's very useful. 51% owned right now. So that's probably still a little bit too low, compared to where he should be.
Right, still widely available.
Yeah.
I like that. In between the pipes, and who would have thought he'd be a sleeper to start the year, but he's turned into it. Matt Murray on the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I've been pumping the tires. I know you love him too. Tristan Jarry of the Penguins has just come on surging. He's the type of player that can help win you a fantasy league. But Matt Murray's won his last 5 starts. His save percentage has creeped back up to 900. And we could be seeing, depending how it plays out, more of a split. It's a situation where you can probably in a trade get him at a lower price than you would have expected. Maybe sell high on Jarry. Maybe you get both on your team. Who knows? So there is that upside with Matt Murray. With him starting to play better, maybe down the stretch he starts playing well and gives you a good opportunity.
Well, he has that pedigree, of course, playing in Pittsburgh, and the team in front of him is so good. So if Tristan Jarry does start to fall off a little bit, if he suffers an injury, Matt Murray's going to be the guy, and he's going to have so much value moving forward. So I like him as a speculative ad if you can get him in a great buy low candidate.
Sure. What about you for goalie?
Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers is someone I'm looking at. Owned in like 17% of leagues right now. They have that weird three-headed monster going on in New York right now. He's been down in the AHL, getting some conditioning stints as obviously we're on the All-Star break. But once he comes back to the NHL, maybe Alexander Georgiev is a guy that's on the way out of New York, and that would open a ton of playing time for him. It was only 3 games, but he put up a .929 save percentage in those 3 games. He's clearly the goaltender of the future in New York and possibly the goaltender of the present right now if he continues doing what he's doing. So it's sort of a speculative ad at this point because you're not sure how much time he's going to get. But if Georgiev is traded before the deadline, then, the sky's the limit for this guy. He's going to face a lot of shots. So in leagues where it's just saves only and not goals against average or save percentage, I think he's perfect for leagues like that. He's got a lot of value. So 17%, if you can find room on the roster for him, then definitely go out and add him.
At least stash him. Because that, like Tristan Jarry earlier in the year, that's the type of ad now that if you're proactive and get him, heck, maybe puts you into the playoffs, maybe puts you over the top for a championship, depending how it plays out.
Yeah, Dynasty Leagues, of course. He's going to be a big-time player. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so those are our rest of the season sleeper picks. Let us know yours in the comment section below. But now it's time, Rob. Time to try to win you some money in the Ram Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. The great thing about this league is there's still time to play. You can still get in now, do week to week, or if you're in season long, of course, you want to keep up on it. And the Fantasy Forecheck, this show is brought to you by the Canadian exclusive Ram 1500 Sport. This full-size pickup gives Canadians exceptional capability under the hood, advanced technology inside, and impeccable styling throughout. It's the Ram 1500 Sport, and it's designed for life in the North. So you head on over to fantasy.sportsnet.ca to play now. If you're new to the game and the league, this is how it works. You have 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, 2 goalies. You have 30 points to spend, and the players are 1 to 4 points. That's how they are priced. So you kind of mix and match all there. And with that, you can tag from each position group 1 player for your Ram capable pick. And that player gets you double fantasy points. So this is where that comes in. So at forward, who's your Ram capable pick?
I think I'm looking at a value guy this week, and Anthony Duclair. We were joking before about you never want to play Senators, but I think in this case where they've got 4 games this week, he's a guy that I'm going to be looking at. So Duclair this year, All-Star. Obviously, we saw him and how well he did in St. Louis this year, but he's been top 30 in shots per 60 this year among forwards. A couple of teams this week in New Jersey, Toronto, not great defensively, so he's going to have some opportunity there. First power play time, Buffalo, New Jersey in the bottom half of the league in penalty kill percentage, so some nice matchups there on the man advantage. And he's just a guy that, that we thought a couple of years ago may never make it in the NHL. There are question marks. John Tortorella, his former coach in Columbus, saying essentially, not sure this guy knows what he's doing out there, not sure if he's ever never going to figure it out. Well, he has,
He did.
and he's been a superstar this year for the Ottawa Senators. He's been an all-star. So just a value of 2 this week, saving you some dough for maybe some higher-priced guys on your roster. I think Anthony Duclair is almost a must-play, in my opinion, just because of the value that he offers you. And he's a guy that, could be putting up similar numbers to those guys that are, worth $4 this week.
Yeah, and I love the 2-point price tag. I'm with you there. I'm going to go kind of the opposite end. The Nikita Kucherov cruised into the All-Star break, 5 goals in his last 3 games. You look at Tampa Bay as one of those 4-game teams this week. And when you can have a club like Tampa Bay that is surging, they're pushing, everybody's clicking. I'm going to go Kucherov over, let's say, Stamkos. He's been hotter.
Yep.
You get the extra game in there with the 4. The value is there. You're paying the top dollar, but I think it's going to pay off. So I'll go with Kucherov as my Ram-capable forward. Who's your defender?
I'm looking at another All-Star, and that's Alex Pietrangelo of the St. Louis Blues. Value of 2 as well, so you're saving a little bit of dough there. 4 games this week: Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg. You love those matchups, especially against Vancouver and Winnipeg.
Yeah.
2 teams that really struggle defensively. And I look at a guy like Roman Yossi, and you're sort of getting a discount on a Roman Yossi-esque player in Alex Pietrangelo, who shoots an absolute ton. He's got 30 shots on goal in his last 10 games. He's playing over 24 minutes a night. He's an absolute fantasy stud. And like I mentioned, you're getting him at a discount as opposed to some of those top guys. So you're saving some dough here and maybe using it somewhere else. Alex Pietrangelo, I think, is a no-brainer.
Yeah, a double value dip for yours. I'm going to go with Roman Yossi, and I'm going to do it because the consistency. I know everybody loves John Carlson, and heck, no one's going to blame me if you pick John Carlson here. But for Roman Yossi, over his last 8 games, he's averaging 10.5 fantasy points. Just steady, consistent. He's ranked 10th overall in Yahoo leagues as a top fantasy player. Again, one of the 4-game teams, so you're going to get an extra dose of Yossi. Can't go wrong there either, so I'm going to slap the Ram-capable tag on him. In between the pipes, who you have?
Yeah, Fredrick Anderson is a guy that's definitely been not great over the last little while as a goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he's got 3 games this week, no back-to-back, so the likelihood that he's going to play all 3 games is pretty high. We know the Maple Leafs are really struggling to get some points right now. They're in a dogfight for the playoff spot, so they're going to ride Freddie Anderson. And, we know his track record. When he's on, he's on. He's a guy that has been a top 10 goaltender in this league before, going through a bit of a lull here. So you may even get, him at lower ownership compared to some other guys as well. So maybe get a little bit of leverage there with Fredrick Anderson. The matchups this week, Nashville and Dallas are 2 of those teams. Tough games there, but I still like this matchup for Freddie Anderson this week with 3 games most likely going to be in net for all of them.
And very important, not the back-to-back, because that's where you can always, if it's a 3 or 4 game week and you have a goalie that has back-to-backs, that's where you could lose some value there, right?
For sure. And I got a 4-point price tag, but I'm willing to pay it this week.
And I'm willing to pay on a double dip of Tampa Bay Lightning, Andrei Vassilievich. My God, what more do you want from the guy? He's won his last 10 starts, right? And again, I'm going back to the fact that it's a 4-game week. Tampa Bay is red hot. So if I can stack in with Kucherov, you got a goaltender that has been absolute money. He's just winning. He's expensive, but he's worth it. And I'll get myself the double fantasy points by putting the Ram-capable tag on. I think you got to ride the hot hand there.
Yeah, I think you do as well. We saw how good he can be in years past. He's had some, dips every once in a while, but what goaltender hasn't? And he's on an incredible team right now in Tampa Bay that's surging, pardon the pun, but the Lightning are incredible.
They absolutely are. We want to hear from you, so leave your comments in the section below. Let us know what you think, our tips, if you like them, if you don't, and good luck in the Rams Sportsnet Fantasy Hockey Pool. For Rob Wong, I'm Andy McNamara, and we will talk to you next week.